Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be diving deep into project management
Oh, nice.
using a training document from, the Project Management Institute. Now, the PMI document also talks about how project management itself has evolved over time. And I found that section fascinating, like how it's changed over, the
Yeah,
years.
it's moved away from a strictly plan-based approach to a more dynamic, we call it systems view,
Okay.
really focusing on the outcomes and adapting to change.
Interesting. Can you elaborate on what that means, like in practice?
Sure. So, in the past, project management was very rigid,
Sure.
with a focus on sticking to that predetermined plan no matter what.
Yeah, yeah. But reality is, projects rarely go exactly according to plan.
Never.
There are always unexpected challenges, new information comes up, priorities shift.
I got to be able to adapt.
You have to.
Yeah.
And so that's where the systems view comes in. It recognizes that a project's not just a series of tasks, but it's this complex system with all these interconnected parts.
Yeah.
And it really emphasizes flexibility, collaboration, and a focus on delivering value incrementally.
So instead of just following the plan, you're kind of constantly assessing, adjusting, optimizing based on feedback and the evolving needs of the project.
Exactly. And this shift is really what's led to the rise of Agile methodologies,
Hmm.
which really embrace change and prioritize delivering value in those short iterative cycles. Instead
Right.
of building the entire house at once, you're building it room by room, making sure that each room is functional, meets the needs of the client.
Yeah, I like that. That analogy really helps to visualize it.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. So now let's say you're working on a large scale project, maybe even involving like multiple teams.
That could get pretty complicated.
Absolutely. And that's where a project management office can be incredibly helpful. We call them PMOs.
TMO. Okay.
Yeah, they act as the central hub for project management within an organization,
Okay.
providing support, guidance, standardization, all those good things.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the document actually mentioned different types of PMOs. Can
Yes.
you break those down a little bit for us?
Sure. So we have supportive PMOs, which primarily offer guidance and best practices. Then you have controlling PMOs, which enforce stricter standards and compliance requirements.
Ah.
And then you have directive PMOs, which actually directly manage and control projects.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So which one you choose depends on your organizational culture, the project complexity, and the desired level of control.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Not at all. It's about finding the right fit for your needs.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And then there's this whole concept of organizational project management
The TM.
or OPM. Okay.
Which is a strategic framework that connects projects, programs, and portfolios to your overall business strategy.
Okay. Now, I remember that the document had this great visual to explain this. It was like a tree.
Exactly. The company's mission is the trunk. The portfolios are the branches. Programs are the smaller branches.
Uh-huh.
And then the projects are the leaves. It
Oh.
really ensures that every leaf, every project is contributing to the growth and health of that tree.
That's a really cool way to put it. So that's how projects fit into like the bigger picture of the business.
Exactly.
Awesome. Now, speaking of fitting in, I know that understanding organizational structures is crucial for project success.
Yeah.
But I was a little confused by all the different types, to be honest.
Yeah, so there are four main types the document outlined: functional, matrix, project-oriented, and composite. And really, each structure impacts the project manager's authority, the availability of resources, and then how the project's executed overall.
Got it. So let's say you're working in a matrix structure. How would that differ from, let's say, a functional structure?
Okay, so in a functional structure, team members report to their functional manager who has the most authority.
Oh.
But in a matrix structure, they report to both their functional manager and the project manager.
Oh, yeah.
And so that can create ambiguity.
Right, because you got two bosses.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's a bit of a balancing act there.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Okay, so each structure has its own advantages and disadvantages, and it's important to understand how those dynamics can impact your project.
For sure.
Okay, cool. Now, no matter what structure you're working in, the PMI document stresses the importance of following certain fundamental principles
Yes.
for successful project management.
Right.
And they actually list 12 of them,
They do.
which is quite a lot. So
It's a lot to remember.
it is a lot to remember.
Yeah.
But they're all really good. Which one stands out to you as like particularly important?
Ooh, that's a good question. I find the principle of Taylor to be particularly relevant in today's world.
Taylor.
Yeah, because it recognizes that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to project management.
Yeah, I can see that.
Every project is unique, and we need to be flexible enough to adapt our processes and methods to fit those specific needs.
So it's about being adaptable, finding the right tools and techniques for the job, rather than rigidly sticking to like one methodology.
Exactly, being pragmatic and focusing on what works.
Right, right. That makes a lot of sense. Now, speaking of methodologies, the document also dives into Agile principles and mindset.
Yeah, Agile has become very popular, and for good reason.
Mhm.
It really emphasizes collaboration, flexibility, and that focus on delivering value incrementally.
Yeah, and they talk about the Agile Manifesto,
Yes.
which outlines 4 core values.
They do. It's individuals and interactions over processes and tools.
So,
Working software over comprehensive documentation.
mm-hmm.
Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. And responding to change over following a plan.
Yeah, it's interesting because they also talk about like doing Agile versus being Agile.
Right, because it's not enough to just follow those agile practices.
Right.
You really need to embrace the underlying values and principles to truly reap those benefits.
Yeah, I think that applies to project management in general.
I agree.
It's not just about ticking the boxes.
Right.
It's about understanding the why behind the what.
Absolutely. It's about having that adaptable mindset, that commitment to continuous learning and improvement.
Yeah. And that's a perfect segue into our next topic, which is
Strategic alignment and business acumen.
you read my mind.
Yeah.
So it's not enough to just be good at managing tasks.
Right.
You also need to understand how your project aligns with the organization's goals and how it contributes to that business value.
Precisely. And that's where that PMI talent triangle comes in.
Yes.
Which really highlights the importance of business acumen alongside technical project management skills and leadership skills.
Okay, so it seems like understanding the business context of a project is just as important as mastering those technical aspects.
It absolutely is. Project managers need to be able to speak the language of business, understand the financial implications,
Right.
and make those decisions that align with the organization's strategic objectives.
Yeah, so you're not just a project manager, you're like a strategic partner,
Exactly.
who's helping the organization
Right.
succeed. Okay, cool. Now, the document also talks about OKRs,
Yes. Objectives and key results.
which is a powerful tool for strategic alignment.
They are. It's a great way to ensure everyone's on the same page, working toward those same goals.
Yeah.
It breaks down those high-level objectives into measurable milestones.
Okay,
So it's easier to track progress and ensure accountability.
got it. Okay, well, I think that's a good place to pause for now.
I agree.
We've covered a lot of ground already. From defining what a project is to understanding how it fits within the organization and its strategic goals.
Yep.
We'll pick back up in the next part of the deep dive where we'll explore the importance of actually delivering project benefits
Yes.
and navigating the often challenging aspects
Mhm.
of change management and organizational culture.
Looking forward to it.
Me too.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for more.
So picking up where we left off last time, let's dive into this idea of project benefits and value.
Okay.
Because it's not enough to just complete a project. We need to make sure it delivers the intended value.
Right. It's like planting a seed.
Mm.
Water it, nurture it, but it's not enough.
Right.
You need to actually harvest the fruit.
Exactly.
See the results.
I love that. And the PMI document, it really highlights this crucial link between that benefits realization
Yeah.
and those initial project objectives.
Yeah, it mentioned different types of like business value a project can deliver. What are some examples of that?
So it could be financial gain, increased efficiency, improved customer satisfaction, even, social impact. It really depends on the nature of the project and the organization's goals.
So many possibilities.
Yeah.
It's like a treasure chest. But how do we make sure we're unlocking that treasure? Actually realizing those benefits.
That's where the benefits management plan comes in.
Okay.
And this document, what it does is it outlines how those benefits are going to be identified, measured, tracked throughout the project's entire life cycle.
So you're not just hoping for the best, you're actually having a plan to get there.
Exactly. And it's about identifying who's responsible,
Right.
making sure that accountability is clearly defined.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Now, the document also stresses having strong business acumen as a project manager.
Yes, because remember that PMI talent triangle? It really highlights business acumen alongside those technical project management skills and the leadership skills.
Okay, so understanding the business context of a project is like just as important as mastering those technical parts of it.
It is, because product managers need to be able to speak the language of business. Yeah. Understand the financial implications.
Right.
Make those decisions that align with the organization's strategic objectives.
It's like you're not just a project manager.
Right.
You're a strategic thinker who understands how it all fits together.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that I think a lot of people kind of overlook,
Okay.
which is change management.
Yes, it's the elephant in the room.
Right. It's like nobody wants to acknowledge it, but
That's right.
it's there.
But, change is inevitable, especially in the context of projects.
Right.
Because remember, projects are often the driving force behind organizational change.
Yeah.
And understanding how to manage that change effectively it's crucial.
Yeah, the document made a really good point. It said, organizational change requires individual change.
Yes, because it impacts people,
Right.
not just systems and processes.
So it's not about just announcing a change and being like, all right, everybody get in line.
That's right.
It's about understanding how people experience it.
And how they adapt to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you do that? How do you make sure people, are going along with the change?
Well, that's where this thing called the 80 car model comes in.
The 80 car model. Yeah.
It outlines 5 key stages
Okay.
that individuals go through during that change process.
What are they?
So it's awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and then reinforcement.
Wow. Okay, so it's like a step-by-step to help people.
To guide them through it,
Yeah, well,
emotionally and practically.
I imagine that having a framework like that really helps with minimizing resistance
It does.
and getting people on board.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah, okay. Now, another important aspect of change management that I think is really crucial is the organizational culture.
Yes.
Because trying to force a change that clashes with the existing culture is probably going to...
It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
Like trying to plant a cactus in a rainforest. It's just not going to thrive.
So how do you assess and navigate that organizational culture when you're implementing change?
It's about understanding those shared values, those beliefs, behaviors that shape the organization's way of working.
Okay.
So identifying those potential areas of resistance, addressing those concerns,
Yeah.
and communicating the benefits in a way that resonates.
So it's about being sensitive to the human element
It is.
and tailoring your approach to the situation.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Now, speaking of context, another key element that the document outlined was project governance,
Project governance, yes.
which sounds
It can be intimidating.
a little intimidating, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I get that.
Yeah.
But it's really about providing structure and guidance to make sure projects are aligned with those organizational goals
Okay.
and that they're managed responsibly.
Right.
So it's a framework for decision-making, managing risks, resolving conflicts.
Okay. So it's like having a clear set of rules and procedures to keep everybody on track.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Defining roles and responsibilities, establishing those escalation paths, creating that system of checks and balances to ensure the project is executed well.
Yeah. And it mentions these governance boards.
Yes, governance boards.
What exactly are those?
So those are groups of senior stakeholders that provide that oversight and guidance.
Okay.
They have the authority to, approve or reject plans, make key decisions about the budget and the scope,
Yeah.
and they monitor the progress towards those goals.
So they're like the guardians of the project,
Yeah, I like that.
making sure it stays on track.
Making sure it delivers that intended value.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so closely related to governance is this concept of compliance,
Compliance, yes.
which kind of has a bad rap.
Yeah.
As being bureaucratic and stifling.
I understand that. But compliance is really about ensuring that our projects adhere to the relevant laws, regulations, organizational policies.
So you're doing things the right way.
The right way, ethically and responsibly.
It's like when you build a house, you got to make sure it meets all the codes and regulations.
That's right.
It takes more work,
Yeah.
but it makes sure the structure is sound and secure.
I love that analogy.
Yeah. So, and the document outlines various compliance requirements like environmental protection, workplace safety, data privacy.
All those things.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It is, but the document also provides some practical tips.
Oh, good.
For managing compliance effectively.
Like what?
Like, document your compliance needs,
Uh-huh.
your risks, prioritize compliance in your risk planning.
Okay.
Establish a compliance council to oversee those efforts.
So you're being proactive
Be proactive.
rather than just reacting when something happens.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. And actually, it's interesting. Compliance can be a source of competitive advantage.
It can.
How so?
So when organizations have a strong reputation for compliance,
Uh-huh.
they often find it easier to attract and retain customers, employees, investors.
It's like a stamp of approval
Right.
that you're trustworthy.
Exactly.
Okay, so compliance is actually an investment
It is an
in the
investment
long run.
in the long run.
Okay. This is making me think about how important it is to tailor your approach to each individual project.
Right.
You wouldn't manage a software project the same way you'd manage like a construction project, right?
Absolutely not. And that's where that Taylor principle comes in. Remember, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Adapting our methods and processes to the specific needs.
Okay, so be flexible, be creative, find what works best for that project
Find what works, exactly.
without being like dogmatic about one way of doing things.
That's right.
Okay, cool. So it sounds like continuous evaluation and adjustment are key throughout the project.
Absolutely. It's an ongoing process of assessing, adapting, optimizing
Good.
to make sure you're delivering that value.
Speaking of value, we talked about benefits realization earlier, but I think it's such an important concept that it's worth, revisiting.
I agree, because it's about making sure the project's outcomes are aligned with those organizational goals
Yeah.
and that they're actually translated into those tangible benefits.
So you're not just delivering like a product or service.
Yeah.
You're making sure it's actually making a difference
Making a difference.
in the organization.
That's right.
Okay. And it seems like strong leadership is important for that,
Yeah.
to make sure that happens.
It is. And, it ties back to that PMI talent triangle.
Yeah.
Because effective leaders, they can motivate and inspire their teams,
Uh-huh.
build those strong relationships with those stakeholders,
Right.
and really champion that vision to make sure those benefits are realized.
Awesome. So we've talked a lot about aligning the projects with the organization's goals.
Right.
But how do you actually go about doing that? Like in practice?
Well, that's where that strong business acumen comes in again, right?
Okay.
Project managers really need to understand the organization's mission, the vision, the strategic objectives.
Mhm.
They need to analyze market trends, assess those competitive landscapes, and then identify opportunities to create that value.
So it's about being more than just a project manager. It's about understanding the business as a whole.
It's about being that strategic partner, contributing to the success.
Okay. And you mentioned OKRs.
Yes, objectives and key results.
Can you talk about how those can be used
Sure.
to connect those project goals with the bigger picture?
So OKRs provide that clear and measurable way to track that progress
Okay.
towards both the project-specific and the organizational goals.
Got it.
They help ensure everyone's working towards those same objectives
Mhm.
and that the efforts are aligned for that maximum impact.
So it helps with accountability.
It does.
And actually measuring the value of the project.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Now, I think we need to shift gears again and talk about something that I think a lot of people find a little bit dry,
Okay.
but it's essential, and that's project governance.
Project governance, yes.
I talked about it a little bit before,
Yeah.
but I think it's worth diving into a little deeper.
Let's do it.
I'm still a bit fuzzy on the details, to be honest.
Okay, so think of project governance as this set of guardrails
Okay.
that keep our projects on track, make sure they're aligned with those organizational goals, and that they comply with all the relevant regulations.
Okay.
So it's about establishing those clear roles and responsibilities, defining those escalation paths,
Right.
and creating that system of checks and balances.
So it's about having that framework to make sure that decisions are made responsibly,
Yeah,
risks are managed,
yeah,
and the project stays on track.
it does.
Okay, cool. And remember, we talked about finding that balance, right?
We did, yeah.
Too much governance can stifle creativity
Right.
and innovation, but too little can lead to chaos.
That's right.
So you got to find that sweet spot.
That sweet spot, exactly.
Okay. And the document also talks about the role of those governance boards,
Yes, those governance boards.
which are those like senior stakeholders
Yeah.
who provide oversight and guidance.
Exactly.
So they're kind of like a steering committee.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay. And then closely related to governance is, of course, compliance.
Compliance.
The word that makes every project manager,
Shudder. A little bit, yeah.
I understand.
But I think you said it before. It doesn't have to be scary.
It doesn't.
It's about making sure you're following the rules, doing things the right way.
That's it.
Okay. So it's like, again, building a house, making sure it meets all the codes and regulations.
We like that.
Takes extra effort,
It does.
but you're doing it the right way.
You're doing it the right way. And the document it outlines various compliance requirements.
Uh-huh.
Things like environmental protection, workplace safety, data privacy, financial reporting.
Right, right.
So it's important to be aware of these
Yeah.
and build them into your plan from the beginning.
So you're being proactive
Proactive, yes.
rather than scrambling when something comes up.
Okay. And it also mentions establishing a compliance council
Yes.
to kind of oversee all this.
That's right.
So it seems like compliance is really everybody's responsibility,
It is.
not just one person's job.
It's about that culture of awareness, accountability,
Okay.
and doing things ethically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, all this talk about compliance and governance really highlights how important organizational culture is
It is.
for project success, right?
Absolutely. Because remember, organizational culture is that invisible force that shapes how we work, how we interact.
It's like the personality of the organization.
That's a good way to put
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So how do you assess that and navigate it when you're managing projects?
Well, you have to understand those shared values, those beliefs, those behaviors that shape how that organization works.
Right.
So it's about identifying those areas where you might get resistance.
Okay.
Addressing those concerns,
Yeah.
communicating those benefits of the changes in a way that resonates.
So be sensitive, tailor your approach.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And it also seems like a strong organizational culture
Yes.
can really help with project success.
It can.
Right.
Absolutely, because when organizations value things like innovation and collaboration and continuous improvement, they're much more likely to embrace those new ideas.
Right. And to be able to adapt to
The
change.
threat to change, exactly.
Like you're creating fertile ground for those projects to grow.
I love that analogy.
Yeah. Okay, now on the flip side, we also need to talk about project constraints,
Constraints, yes.
which are those,
limitations.
that always seem to get in the way.
They always do,
Yeah.
but they're not necessarily a bad thing
Okay.
because they can actually help us focus and make better decisions.
Really? How so?
Well, because they force us to be creative,
Right.
to find innovative solutions.
Okay.
So let's say you have a limited budget.
Right.
You might have to come up with a more cost-effective way to reach your goal.
Right, so it forces you to be more resourceful.
Resourceful, exactly.
Okay.
It can also help you prioritize, make trade-offs.
Mm-hmm.
If you only have so much time and so many resources,
Okay.
you're going to focus on those important tasks.
Right, so work smarter, not harder.
Exactly. Work smarter, not harder.
Okay. And what are some of the most common constraints?
So the document outlines scope, time, cost, quality, resources.
The classic project management triangle.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those are all interrelated.
They are.
If you change one, it affects the others.
Absolutely. If you increase the scope, it's going to take longer, cost more,
Right.
reduce the budget. You might have to sacrifice some quality or
Right.
some features.
It's a delicate balancing act.
It is. So constraint management is crucial.
Yeah, okay. So speaking challenges, let's
Yeah.
talk about risk management,
Risk management.
which is the art of anticipating
And mitigating.
and mitigating potential problems.
Yeah.
It's like wearing a helmet when you ride a bike.
Great.
You might not need it.
But it's better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah, and the document, it outlines a 5-step process
It
for
does.
risk management.
It does.
So walk us through that.
Okay, so the first step is identifying those risks.
Okay.
So you're brainstorming those potential problems that could arise.
So you're being proactive,
Proactive, that's right.
trying to anticipate those problems before they derail you.
Exactly. The second step is analyzing those risks.
Uh-huh.
Assessing the likelihood, the impact of each risk.
So you're figuring out which ones are the most important.
That's right, exactly.
Okay, so you know what to focus on.
Exactly.
Okay, what's next?
So next is planning those risk responses.
Okay.
So developing strategies to either mitigate or avoid those high priority risks.
Okay, so coming up with a plan.
That's right, that plan of action.
Okay, got it.
And then the fourth step is implementing those risk responses, putting those plans into action.
Okay.
And then the final step is monitoring those risks.
Right.
So you're tracking, reassessing throughout that whole project life cycle.
So it's a constant process
It is.
of managing those risks.
It is.
Okay, so it's a very comprehensive approach, making sure you're prepared for whatever might happen.
That's the goal.
Okay, and it's funny. Risk management can actually be a source of opportunity.
It can.
How?
Well, when we identify and mitigate risks early on,
Right.
we avoid costly problems later.
It's like fixing a small leak before it becomes a flood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by taking calculated risks, we can actually get bigger rewards,
It's like investing.
like investing. Yeah,
High risk, high reward.
that's right.
Okay, so it's not just about being, like, defensive.
Right.
It's about,
It can drive success.
yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about stakeholder management,
Stakeholder management, yes.
which is, like, all the different people involved in a project.
It's crucial.
Yeah.
It's about building those strong relationships with everyone who has an interest.
So project team, sponsors.
Customers, anybody affected.
Okay, so understanding their needs, keeping them informed, addressing concerns
All of that.
throughout the
A
project.
whole project.
Okay, and the document outlines like a 4-step process for this.
Yes, it's identifying stakeholders, analyzing their interests, planning that stakeholder engagement, and then managing that stakeholder engagement.
It's all about making sure they feel heard.
Heard, valued, engaged.
Yeah, and stakeholder management can actually be a source of competitive advantage too.
It can.
How so?
Well, when organizations have strong relationships with their stakeholders,
Right,
they can get things done more quickly and more efficiently.
because they're all on board.
They're on board. They're your allies.
Okay.
Hey, yeah.
So it's not just about keeping people happy. It's about using those relationships to actually get stuff done.
That's right.
Okay, awesome. So let's move on to another important aspect of project management.
Let's do it.
So we've covered like a lot of ground in this deep dive. From strategic alignment and change management to stakeholder engagement and risk assessment.
It's been a lot.
It has. But there's one more piece
Yeah.
of this project management puzzle that we need to discuss,
Okay.
and that is communication.
Communication, yes.
Right, because it's like the glue that holds it all together.
It really is.
Without clear communication, even the best plan can fall apart.
Absolutely.
So the document, it emphasizes this,
It does.
the importance of communication. And it really talks about clarity, conciseness,
Being timely.
and timeliness
Yeah.
in all your interactions.
It's so important.
So it's about making sure everyone understands their roles, their responsibilities,
That goal.
the goals of
Yeah.
the project,
Yeah.
and that they're all like on the same page.
Absolutely.
And it's also about choosing the right, like, communication channels, right?
Right. For the right audience.
Yeah.
And being mindful of cultural differences and communication styles.
Right, because you wouldn't use a megaphone to whisper a secret.
Exactly.
And you wouldn't use email for a complicated technical issue.
That needs like live discussion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got to be adaptable and use a variety of methods.
Absolutely.
And it's also about being a good listener.
Yes. Being a good listener.
Getting feedback.
Asking questions.
Yeah, clarifying things so that everybody understands.
Make sure everyone's on that same page.
Okay, now, even with the best communication practices, conflicts are probably going to happen.
Oh, they're gonna happen.
Right.
It's natural.
Yeah, because you've got different people with different perspectives and priorities
Different work styles.
and work styles.
Yeah.
So the document talked about some different conflict management techniques.
Yes, it did. Like what?
So collaboration, compromise, and forcing.
Okay, so how do you decide which approach is the best
Well, it depends.
for the situation?
It depends, right?
Yeah.
What's the nature of the conflict? Who are the personalities involved? And what's the outcome you want?
Sometimes collaboration is best, where everyone works together to find that win-win.
Right. But sometimes you need to be a little bit more assertive.
Sometimes you do. If a decision needs to be made quickly,
Yeah.
or, if someone is deliberately trying to slow things down,
Right. You got to
you need a more directive approach.
be a little stronger.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's about finding that balance
Right.
between being assertive and being cooperative.
And choosing the best technique for the situation.
Exactly.
Okay. And you know what? Conflict, when it's managed well,
Yeah.
can actually be a good thing.
It can.
Right.
It can lead to creative solutions and better decision making.
Because you're getting different viewpoints.
You're challenging assumptions.
It can make things better.
It can.
Okay, so it's not about avoiding conflict.
Right.
It's about using it to your advantage.
Use it to your advantage.
Okay, cool. Now, to wrap up, let's talk about continuous improvement.
Continuous improvement, yes.
Because the field of project management is constantly evolving.
It is.
So we need to always be learning and growing.
We do. And
Yes,
the
sir.
document emphasizes that.
Right, it talks about like reflecting on your experiences.
Your successes. And your failures.
Yeah, using those to improve your processes and practices.
Exactly.
So being open to feedback, always trying to do better.
Always learning.
Okay. And it recommends using like retrospectives,
Yes, lessons learned.
lessons learned, process audits
Yeah,
to help you with that.
to create that culture of continuous improvement.
So it's like you're creating a culture where everybody wants to do better
That's right.
and learning is encouraged
Yeah.
and mistakes are seen as opportunities
Opportunities, yes.
to improve. Remember, project management is not just about getting things done.
Right.
It's about making a difference.
Making a positive impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, until next time, happy project managing.
Happy project managing.